Good morning. So we read this morning a little divine principle. I remember when I first read divine principle, it really didn't make a lot of sense. I read it, the words passed through my mind, but it didn't make a lot of sense. I didn't really have a depth of understanding. So we're going to, you can see it's very technical. If you understand it, it's very technical. Today we're going to break it down a little bit. So, but I want to ask you, have you ever watched TV? I especially like watching nature programs. And I see them on the nature programs, and you just go on listening to them talking about evolution. And they just come up with these ideas that they just stand there and they just present with such assurance and solid, factual, and it's like crazy that you listen to it. And they speak like evolution explains everything. So I was listening to this program where they were talking about the early Earth, how the world was without oxygen. So the anaerobic bacteria were flourishing. Anaerobic bacteria live without oxygen. So the anaerobic bacteria were flourishing and covered the Earth. And then some of them, as a byproduct, began producing oxygen as one of the functions of the body, producing oxygen. So over the course of time, the Earth became full of oxygen from these bacteria. But the problem was anaerobic bacteria can't live in oxygen. So they were producing poison, right? They were killing, the bacteria were killing themselves. So the narrator just says, then some bacteria turned this oxygen from poison into fuel and flourished. And I'm going, what? What do you mean? Some bacteria just decided that, well, instead of getting killed by the poison, we're going to make it our energy and our source. And he just dribbled it out with such calmness and assurance as if that made it right. And it's just not right. Oh, I like fish. And you know I'm working at a fish company. And I like flatfish. They swim at the bottom of the ocean, and they have two eyes on the top of their head so they can jump out and grab some unsuspecting little fish and eat it. But flatfish begin their life swimming like regular fish when they're small. And then as they get older, they start to migrate down to the bottom. And when they go to the bottom, well, having an eye on one side of the head is inconvenient. So they migrate. One eye actually crawls across the top of its head to the other side. The eye crawls across the top of its head to the other side. Some fish look up on the right side. Some fish look up on the left side. I wonder which one is better. But I wonder, how do you teach your children to do that? If that's a part of evolution, if you figured out a better way to survive, how do you teach your children to move their eyes around their head? Can you guys move your eyes around for me while we're watching? No, it's impossible. Actually, can any animal initiate a change in its body structure and then pass it on to its descendants? It just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't happen that way. I have a question. And how does evolution cause these changes to occur in species? Do animals select their own better survival strategies and then change the shape or function of their bodies to implement the strategy? Or do the animals go to the vending machine and choose the survival strategy that they think is going to be better and then call evolution into a makeover? But either way, it doesn't make any sense. But that brings up another question. Who is evolution? Who is coming up with all these great ideas on how to survive better? If we consider the case of human beings, it's even more confusing. For example, one animal would choose a survival strategy of running slower than every other animal, of having lower grade muscle tissue than every other animal, so we are weaker pound for pound than any other animal. How about a body with no tools to aid in hunting or gathering food? And makes you wonder, right? How about the survival strategy of females having long pregnancies, and during which even for some people for 5 or 6 months they're incapable of strenuous work, including hunting and gathering food? don't even talk about children. Essentially helpless, but fully functional consumers, these bundles of joy should have paralyzed our ability to deal with any environmental pressures. So I wonder, is evolution paying attention to this? With all these evolutionary disadvantages, which species has conquered the earth? We have. So some scientists like to point out that humans are social animals that work together to increase their survival chances. Ants do that. Bees do that. But we are not social animals. Some of us are a little less social than others. But when ants and bees get separated from their colonies, they rapidly die. Humans are fully capable of independent existence. But no one is capable of fully independent life. Oops, I had that wrong. We're capable of independent survival, but we're not capable of independent existence. We don't live together because we have to. We live together because we want to. There really is only one explanation. The survival strategy of the human race has nothing to do with evolution. The survival strategy of the human race is not found in the physical, visible, external realm. The survival strategy of the human race is not determined by its superior intelligence, because a lot of us wouldn't be here right now. I am here to tell you that the survival strategy of the human race is love. So what about the theory of evolution? What is the theory of evolution? The theory of evolution is the scientists and the philosophers, the thinkers and the searchers, trying to explain the world we live in without God. The theory of evolution simply as the nameless, faceless force of evolution drives the course of natural history without any direction, without any destination. And poof, here we are, human beings. The species that completely disregards the rules of evolution is on top of the world. How can evolution explain that? It can't. But I don't blame those scientists and philosophers. Just like everyone else, they were born in sin and raised in iniquity. Through the fall of Adam and Eve, we know our relationship with God was cut off. Those thinkers, those scientists, they want to understand how the world works, but they don't feel God is their Father. So they have to try to explain the world without God. As a result, the world we live in, that's the world that doesn't know God, is full of strange ideas and dangerous theories. To sell those strange ideas and those theories, the scientists and philosophers have to ignore actual reality because those theories just don't hold up. There is no logical basis to the idea of species evolving over time. But since we're here in church, I suppose we all believe in God. So, we also want good, solid logic. Strange ideas and strange theories don't usually lead to good results. If we want to live our lives enjoying the best results possible, understanding the nature and the will of God is essential. So when I need to understand the nature of will of God, I check in with Reverend Moon. He's my man. Reverend Moon has spent a lot of time thinking about God, communicating with God. He's dedicated his life selflessly to God. But how does this man, who has lived his life intimately connected with God, how does he explain the world we live in? I want to read from a speech called The Ideal World of Subject and Object. Now we start breaking it down. There is a desire in your hearts to reach out for a high and noble ideal, and you desire to do noble deeds. Where does this desire come from? Who planted such a noble concept in your hearts? Some might say That's a quality given to me by my mother and father. But where do they get such a desire? Communism has provided one answer. In communist theory, matter is the source of everything. Do you think that matter can create the spiritual qualities and desires of man's heart? You think so, Willie? Yes, sir. Go ahead, hang in there. Dialectical materialism is coupled with a theory of evolution, which explains how material things evolve to ever higher and more sophisticated levels. However, within the human heart, basic feelings and desires will never evolve, but remain from generation to generation. Do you think that parents' love today is different from the way parents loved their children 2,000 years ago, or 3,000 years from now? These things can't change. If mankind belongs to the animal kingdom, then will the monkey or any other animal someday evolve to the point where they feel as human beings feel? Will they have man's sense of justice and morality and a desire to elevate themselves through some noble concept? Will time create that in monkeys? A monkey will never be a man, even after thousands and millions of years have passed. There is no evolution of such heartfelt desires of spiritual motivation. We conclude that man was created from the very beginning as man, and that God gave him a spiritual capacity, plus a desire to be like God and reach his standard. These desires remain unchanging through time. Why? The simple conclusion is that God is the subject, not matter. From the very beginning, he created man to be his object, infusing man with his own unchanging qualities. We eternally remain as a mirror of God, and because God's qualities do not change, we also have no way to change. God is our subject, not matter, not evolution. Man is the object. This is what we read in the beginning from the divine principle, about subject-object. Then what exactly does that mean, subject-object? Maybe you never heard that term before. I see some people who haven't. Let me tell you. Subject-object means everything is created in relationship with something else. And everything is created for that relationship with something else. Nothing exists independently. Everything exists as part of a paired relationship. Everything finds its purpose in the paired relationship, and everything finds its value in this relationship. We call that subject-object. We see that in the relationship between people and God. We see that in the relationship between men and women. We see that in the relationship of a golf ball and the golf hole. It is a relationship where two become one. Like the two sides of a coin or the two poles on a battery. One is not possible without the other. One is not more important than the other. Each one completes the other. When the Bible says God created man in his image, it means God created man to fulfill the subject-object relationship. It means God and man should be inseparable, like two sides of a coin or two poles on a battery. Therefore, to be human requires, by definition, a relationship with God. Human beings did not evolve into beings of love. We were created to live in the world of love, God's world of love. Everything about us is designed for the experience of love first, not survival. All of our senses exist to recognize love. Our skin is not covered with hair to protect us from the elements. smooth. Right, brothers? Especially in women, lovely to look at and touch. Our hands don't have claws to dig or kill. Sometimes I wish they had. To aid in hunting, but sensitive fingers that are thrilled by touching the one we love. I know some people here have been thrilled. I've been thrilled. I love my hands. I love the one I touch. Good stuff. That's right. Our teeth are ineffective weapons because they are set safely behind our lips, where they don't interfere when we are expressing our love by... Say it loud. Yes! Oh, yes. Say it again. So what is the survival strategy of the human race? Love. You know that. All right. Let's check in with the man again. Let's check in with the man. I want to read something else. Another speech. Happy Unification Church members, 1977. Why did God create man and woman to begin with? The purpose was the consummation of love. The origin of all creation began with love. God's blueprint for men and women came from his thinking about the ideal form of love. This is the most astonishing fact. Man, love was the motivation for creation. And out of that motivation, man and woman were conceived to perfectly give and receive love. God designed man and woman to live a life of love, to be fruitful in love, and then to dwell in love for eternity. We come to the conclusion that we were born for love, and that our reason for living is to love, and to grow toward the perfection of love. This is the purpose of life. Anybody like that idea? How about let's give it up for that idea a little bit. That's the only way I can know people are being awake out there. I talk about love. I know you stay awake. But does anybody think that evolution has a better idea than this for survival? Our purpose is love because God, our subject, is love. Doesn't that make more sense than evolution?
Yep.
Young people, you're going to school, you're learning about evolution. I want you to stand up in school and say, I got a better idea than that. Because if you talk to your teacher about love, they will shut up. Because love is universal and impossible to deny. Is random chance creating human beings with the ambition to fall in love and live happily ever after? Does that sound logical?
God is love.
So what a tragedy the fall of man is. Adam and Eve breaking their relationship with God and establishing a subject-object relationship with the other God. Without God, we cannot feel our true value or purpose because God is our subject. And our purpose is to be his object and receive his love. A world without God is full of strange and dangerous ideas. We have to be careful. A life without God is full of strange and dangerous ideas. Why? Because God is our subject, not matter, not evolution, not government. Without God, human life has no center, no point. We are designed and created to perfectly give and receive love. All our senses exist to identify love. We give and receive love as husband and wife. We give and receive love as parents and children. We should give and receive love with God. To be human is, by definition, to have my mind and body united, centered on God. That's the exact quote there. Therefore, God is the absolute essential for human life. Without God, there is no humanity. The divine principle, for those of you who don't know, the divine principle logically explains the fall of man. That's when Adam and Eve ate the apple, remember that? as a corruption of human love in the first human ancestors. Adam and Eve broke the only rule of love that God gave them, and as a result, they never realized their subject-object relationship with the living God. Instead of being a good object to God, who is their true subject, they became a good object to Satan. God's idea of love is absolute, eternal, unchanging, and unique. These ideas are healthy and lead to lasting happiness. Satan's idea of love is relative, temporary, and selfish. These are the strange and dangerous ideas that Adam and Eve inherited from their relationship with Satan. Their experience of love was incomplete and immature. Because of this broken relationship between God and man, human history began upside down. Our behavior, the tragic history of the tragic record of history, the wars, the prejudice, the hatred, the separations, testify to the truth that a person whose mind and body is not united with God as his center and God as his subject is, by definition, not a human being. The clear result is that the history of humanity is actually a history of man's inhumanity towards his fellow man. That history is ongoing today because so many people just don't know that God is their subject. The world where God is not the center has produced terrible results for human beings. It is not human nature to be wicked and nasty. That's inhuman nature. I hope the young people know that human beings are glorious things. They haven't been, but we are. In 1977, Father gave this speech, The Ideal World of Subject and Object. And I always thought about that title. The ideal world of subject and object. Can it really be that simple? Is the ideal world that we all want to live in as close as making good subject-object relationships? God and me, like two sides of one coin. Me and my wife, like two poles on a magnet. I use magnet because we're irresistibly attracted to each other. I said we, not me, we. How about employers and employees working together in complete harmony, like two poles on a battery? Anybody who's had a job knows he wishes it was that way. That's all a result of the fall of man. Learn that. Could the ideal world that all humanity has yearned for come from that simple formula? You bet it can. So brothers and sisters, should we wait for evolution to come to the conclusion that God is our subject? Yes or no? No. Has anybody else been listening besides this guy with the beard? Should we wait for evolution to come to the conclusion that God is our subject? No. Hell no. Should we wait for mankind to evolve into an ideal, peaceful world? No. What courage! Let's give it up for a young lady with courage. Yes, of course, no. We ain't waiting. Don't wait. It ain't gonna happen. That's why I am grateful for Reverend Moon. When I met Reverend Moon, I was living in that world of strange and dangerous ideas. The theory of evolution is just one of those ideas. Today, the sophisticated, intelligent people are showing their deep compassion and character by expanding the definition of marriage. Can men and men ever be compatible sexual partners? No. No. Hell no. Yes, I'm with you. As always, theories without God have to ignore reality. Yeah. The world without God is hell. And I was living in that hell. I was part of that hell. And every new crazy idea was taking us all that hell. Because I was learning what they taught me. And I would still be there today. Except that somebody took the time to teach me divine principle. Amen. Somebody took the time to introduce me to Reverend Moon so I could hear the truth. You know the Bible, it says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. When I heard the truth, I was free to make some logical choices. And I could put my own life in order with the truth. Because when I met Reverend Moon, I found out that God is my subject. Not matter, not evolution, not government. And when I met Reverend Moon, I found out that my wife and I were in a subject-object relationship, the same relationship. Like two sides of a coin, different but inseparably one. Actually, when I met Reverend Moon, I found out that I had a wife. But that's a different story. When I met Reverend Moon, I found out that I am God's object. I am not the lucky accident of historical evolution. I am not an improved monkey. If I ask Willie, who works with me, he might have a different idea. I can ask him now. When I met Reverend Moon, I found out things about myself that nobody else could tell me. I found out that I can be absolute. Because God, my subject, is absolute. I found out that I can be eternal. Because God, my subject, is eternal. I found out that I can be unchanging. Because God, my subject, is unchanging. And I found out that I can be unique. Okay, well, I was always a little unique. But I found out I can be unique in a good way. Because God, my subject, is unique. So to paraphrase the Bible, to paraphrase St. Paul, these qualities do not depend on me, but on the grace of God, who is my subject. Do you think it changed my life to learn these things?
Yes.
Well, if I can be absolute, if I can be eternal, if I can be unchanging, if I can be unique, then I can relate to my wife absolutely. I can relate to my wife eternally. I can relate to my wife unchangingly. I can relate to my wife uniquely. She knows that. And not just my wife. I can relate to my world, the people I live with, the people I work with, the people I golf with, everybody. Absolutely, eternally, unchangingly, uniquely. How about that, Mochizuki? Yes. How about that? All right. All my subject-object relationships, mirroring God. Doesn't that sound like an ideal world of subject and object?
Sure it does.
Sounds like my ideal world, and it's right here, it's right now. And I'm not saying that I am great, but I am saying that I can do all those things because I found out that God is my subject and I am His object. Shouldn't everybody know this?
Yes.
Everybody should know this. You ever watch those Kardashian girls on TV? They spent a lot of money to make their bodies physically perfect. And it has to be said, they've done a good job of that. Come on, Ray, you know that. eternal love. But the Kardashians are not the only ones. There are a lot of people who wish they could relate to their spouse eternally. I'd love to ask you to raise your hand if you want to, but I want to. Yeah. There are a lot of people who wish they could relate to their spouse with absolute love. There are a lot of people who wish they could relate to their spouse with unchanging love. They are everywhere. Wouldn't they be better off if they knew for a fact that God is their subject? That a loving God is their Father? Let me ask you another question. How do you think God feels because someone told me about Bevan Moon? How grateful is God to have me as his object, to be able to share his love with me? Because without me, God is missing someone he loves. And we know that that's God's situation. He's missing almost everybody who doesn't know him, who can't share absolute love and give and take with him. How about my wife? Do you think she's grateful that I found out that God is my subject? And that I could be, or I should be, the living manifestation of God's love? Maybe she would prefer to marry somebody with strange and dangerous ideas. What do you think? Well, actually, being unique is hard enough for her. She doesn't need any strange and dangerous ideas to go with it. All right. Today we looked at just one paragraph from Divine Principle. We looked at one paragraph. And we just changed the lives of 7 billion people for the better. Because God is their subject also. Even if you're here for the first time, you have already elevated your thinking just with one paragraph. So a lot of people have looked for God through prayer and meditation. And personally, I'm not going to go into my prayer life or my meditation. But when I read Bevan Moon's words, I come directly into contact with God's heart and God's thinking. It is so easy. It's so great. It's like cheating. It is cheating. So who says cheaters never win? So I want to invite those of you who are guests here today to get together with the person who brought you here and study those words. Study the Divine Principle, the sermons and the speeches. You and your world will be glad you did. Because God is your subject too. So thank you for listening. God bless you.